Hey, welcome back to One American's Perspective. So, given that we're just a few days away from Christmas, and Christian belief being at kind of the heart of the American Christian holiday of Christmas, I wanted to read a quote from John Milton's Paradise Lost that I think best sums up uh, the faith of Christianity itself. Maybe not necessarily the dogmatic religious practices, and I know that's probably a topic I'll get into a little bit more in the new year. Maybe some of the distinctions between those two. Uh, Nevertheless, I wanted to read the quote to you guys because I found it extremely powerful when I was reading the book. I stopped. It was an audio book. I stopped and I listened to it like 3 or 4 times. It's like, wow, that is good. Unfortunately, it came at the very end of the book. I do recommend it. However, there are some because of the prose and the old school poetry. It is sometimes hard to fully comprehend what is being said. So it can be a little difficult to get through, but it's very dense. It's very rich with really artistic and really beautiful messages throughout. So I highly recommend you read it. Anyway, from the very end of Paradise Lost. So at this point, Saint Michael has come back down to speak with Adam. So this is after the fall, after Adam and Eve have been kicked of out of the garden after being tricked by Satan, and Satan has waged his war, and this particular instance won the battle of getting mankind out of the garden and out of the good graces of God Himself. So Michael comes back to essentially tell Adam what is going to now unfold with his spawn, his generations after Adam. So he tells him, and Adam says to Michael about what he's learned, and this is what he's learned. Henceforth I learned that to obey is best, and love with fear the only God, to walk as in presence, ever to observe His providence, and on Him sole depend, merciful over all His works, with good still overcoming evil, and by small accomplishing great things. By things deemed weak, subverting worldly strong, and worldly wise by simply meek. That suffering for truth's sake is fortitude to the highest victory, and to the faithful, death the gate of life. So there's every sentence is just jam-packed, I think, with profound wisdom. And I'll just go through a couple of thoughts here, and I'd love to get anybody's opinion on, kind of what they pull out of that. And I'd love to look it up, read it again. It is truly a great quote. And this time I'll type it out in the comments so you have that to refer to. To love with fear. What a seeming contradiction of ideas. How can you love something that you fear? And I think a godly reverence for that, whatever it may be, is really at the highest plane that those two ideas can even intersect. I'll leave it at that because that is probably more than I'm capable of diving into in this particular video. Merciful over all His works, with good still overcoming evil, and by small accomplishing great things. In the past I've said little stones make big pyramids, not big periods. Knowing that we are, there's a recognition here that really man is fairly futile. We have short lifespans. We can do very little by ourselves, but we can still accomplish something truly great, even by small acts of kindness within the community, acts of true courage. Those things can stack up, and in a moment or an accumulation of them can truly make great things happen. By things deemed weak, subverting worldly strong, and worldly wise by simply meek. So the Bible talks again and again about God favoring the meek and the weak over necessarily the strong, and that's, I think, something that we can emulate as people. And I don't do a very good job of it oftentimes, but I think all of us probably can learn from that to look after those that can't look after themselves. And that's a fundamental, I think, Christian thought that's overlooked oftentimes, is that we have an obligation, one, to subject ourselves to the higher power of God, and then to recognize that we're all weak, and therefore look after weakness when we recognize it, and not trample on it. At least that's what I think is at the heart of a Christian of the Christian belief. And then lastly, that suffering for truth's sake is fortitude to the highest victory. I two words there that stand out, I think, are kind of at the heart of this channel, is the search for truth and finding out what that is, and the inevitability. That was the first video I did that I laid out, like that was the intent of this channel. And I think the second or third video immediately following that was the recognition that suffering is an inescapable reality for mankind, and within the Christian belief, is because it is the curse placed upon us after the fall from the garden, that we will now be exposed to suffering, and that there's the truth is that suffering is real, and that only in choosing what suffering we that we find ourselves under the burden of, is it for truth's sake, or is it for a falsehood's sake? We're going to suffer one way or the other, but that suffering in the name of actual truth, if we are so wise, or can be granted with the wisdom to actually determine what that truth is really the highest calling that we have. I've talked about Viktor Frankl in the past. It's just something that really hits home for me. So as we come upon the end of the year and the Christmas season, and how those two coincide, I know I will try to spend some time in reflection. I would challenge you to do the same, about what truths do I need to be pursuing in the coming year, and what suffering should I voluntarily bear in the name of the pursuit of that truth, or the obtaining of that truth. So pretty heady things. Hope you enjoy your Christmas holiday with your family, and however you guys decide to celebrate that, the time off from work, and hopefully recentering yourself on what really matters to you in your world. Merry Christmas, and have a good day.